Let me tell you the story of a man, a hero really, who on several occasions has saved the world, protected freedom, and ensured the future of humanity. This man is your typical square-jawed, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, what you see is what you get kind of a man. He is the walking embodiment of the ideal American. At a young age, his father, a soldier, became his role model and inspired him to great things. Tragically, his father was killed, but the pain and loss helped drive our young hero. This man grew up wanting to protect people and do what was right. Eventually, he joins a paramilitary force, dons a blue uniform, and has a shield as a weapon. But he is not above using guns when the time is needed. He is often seen riding a motorcycle and is trained in hand-to-hand combat. He also has an unusual biology. Due to an experiment, his DNA has been altered, giving him superhuman abilities. He fights for the side of good, against an evil regime bent on conquering the world. This regime has loyal soldiers, contracted killers, and an advanced mechanized infantry. The leader of this evil empire has a skull for a head, uses technology and occult magic for his ultimate goal of global domination. More tragedy would enter his life, as his best friend, whom he once thought dead, returns. Our hero eventually comes to the realization that his friend is working for the enemy and must be dealt with, but he still tries to help his friend. Eventually, he would become the leader of a superhero team. This team was part of a special organization that rose from the ashes of a devastating war, with the goal of protecting the world. Together, they fought aliens, robots, and once, each other. They received orders from a decorated war veteran who provided the team with vehicles, weapons, as well as a mobile command base. Amusingly, he has occasionally had heated debates with another member of his team, who often wears red and has an armored suit, but they eventually become friends, even after coming to blows. And most curious of all, he is from another time. In what is our present, he is an outsider, but is an accepted hero, no matter what year it is. I bet by now you know the identity of this man, but in case you don't, I'll tell you. You already know him by his superhero identity, but his name, his real name, is Sky Tate. I'm sorry, did you think I was talking about Captain America? Silly you. Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Birdkeep, bringing you episode 189 here at the Tavern, presented by HeroTaku.com. So I know I've told this story a number of times in the past, but for today's discussion, I think it bears repeating. So a number of years ago, I'm sitting on the roof of a hotel in Los Angeles with a number of my classmates talking one-on-one with a Hollywood executive. Now, I'm not going to tell you who this executive was or who he works for now, but what I will say is that between the late 90s and the early aughts, he was working over at Disney. To what capacity, I'm not exactly sure, but it had executive in the title somewhere. And, we're having a one-on-one discussion with this guy and just ask him questions about the business, things about what he's done, upcoming projects, just kind of a free-for-all on anything. So, of course, when it comes my turn, I naturally have to turn to discussion about Power Rangers because he was with Disney at the time in which they acquired Power Rangers from Saban. And I seriously just kind of wanted to know anything he could say about that, that buyout, basically. So I asked him, pretty much, hey, you were there at the time that this happened. What'd you think? What was going on? What was the word around the studio? What kind of plans and potential did you see with the Power Rangers franchise? And he kind of looks at me with this, what the hell did you just ask me kind of look on his face. And he says to me very bluntly, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He basically says, Power Rangers is a piece of shit franchise that is only meant to sell toys, and I didn't like it. That is pretty much what he said to me. And to be crestfallen would be an understatement, because it's just very disappointing to hear something like that. Not just because I'm a Power Ranger fan and I didn't like the way that Disney handled Power Rangers, but just look at where we are with Disney today and where Power Rangers is. Let me kind of explain here. In the years since Saban has bought back Power Rangers and Disney has, cut ties with the entire franchise, what exactly has Disney been doing? Well, of course, at the time they owned Power Rangers, they acquired Marvel, and they have come up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Netflix TV series, and have turned basically the entire Marvel Comics idea into something that's mainstream that even my mother, who grew up at the time where all these comics were a thing and she never read any of them, totally is into Captain America, totally is into Iron Man, loves watching Daredevil, and I think she's trying to watch Luke Cage right now. They have turned it into essentially a niche thing that is something that was amongst, prepubescent teenagers and maybe a couple of young adults in college into something that is mainstream and is globally accepted. And then what did they do after, they gave the rights of Power Rangers back to Saban? They went out and bought Star Wars. And before the ink was dry on the contract, they already greenlit 5 movies. I mean, as soon as George Lucas signed his name, Episode 7 was announced as far as coming out. And since that time, now we have it where we have, I think, 1 or 2 new Star Wars TV shows. We have a new movie coming out every year from now till who knows when. I mean, we just had episode 7, episode 8's coming out. We have Rogue One coming out. The merchandise is like crazy. I'm in a foreign country, and I still can't walk anywhere without seeing Star Wars at the 7-Eleven, at the toy store, whatever. Really bad when the movie came out, but it's still something that months and months and months after the movie's been out, it's still there. So Disney, in essence, has kind of made Star Wars relevant again by putting it out there, making these new movies, and I would say oversaturating the market with Star Wars merchandise. And the question I have now is, you bought Marvel, you turned it into a worldwide phenomenon. You bought Star Wars, you re-injected life into that franchise. You bought Power Rangers, you wanted to cancel it as soon as you got it. What the hell? Okay, I would like to think that when you get a franchise, you actually want to do something with it as opposed to killing it to begin with. I mean, it's just kind of like, oh, I bought this brand new puppy. Now I'm going to kill it. I know that's a little extreme, but that is pretty much what they did with Power Rangers. Is like, oh, or what they were trying to do. Is like, oh, I got this brand new thing. It's awesome. It's made money and people love it and everything. And now let's just throw it away and never have to deal with it. It's ours now. We don't have to bother with it. I will remind everyone that Disney had to be convinced to move the production to New Zealand because it would be cheaper. Because Disney, in their infinite wisdom, decided, hey, let's not take Power Rangers and film it here anymore because it's too expensive to film a popular television show. And here's the thing that gets me most of all, is that Disney gets Marvel, and they tell all these amazing stories. They have, this kind of they have a World War II story. They have space galaxy adventure story. They have mystery and intrigue. They have gritty crime dramas and street dramas and procedural, the lawyer show. Basically it's kind of what Daredevil's not exactly a procedural lawyer show, but you get the idea. They're trying to hit all these different genres with the Marvel stuff, and then when they get Star Wars, they get science fiction, fantasy, adventure, and outer space. But as I hope my opening little, teaser that I did for this week has informed you guys, there really isn't a lot of difference between the stories you can tell between Power Rangers and Marvel and Star Wars. Because, guys, when I actually thought about it and I was writing out some ideas for this episode, I realized that when you break it down, Sky, the blue SPD Power Ranger, is pretty much Captain America beat for beat. I mean, from a blue costume to a shield, being from another time, I mean, even the villain, Red Skull and Grum, have skulls for heads. They use magic and technology for world domination. What more do you want? And when I thought about that, the sad thing is that basically they took the character that they wanted to make these movies with and just threw them away. I mean, Disney invented the character of Sky Tate. They invented Captain America 2.0, if you will. And they did nothing with his character. They took these stories from Power Rangers and wanted to bury them. They create new stories, but don't want to advertise them, don't want to do anything for them. When they took RPM, they moved it to like a 6 a.m. time slot on like Saturday mornings. And actually, you know what? Ninja Storm, when they bought it, Wild Force was in the afternoons. I remember that was on television during the afternoon time period. Might have been Saturday mornings. My memory's a little fuzzy on that right now. But I do remember when Ninja Storm came on, and I actually had to look up when Ninja Storm would be on. It was like 5:30, 6 in the morning before the news came on, and I had to get up early and record the damn thing using my VCR, because that was still a thing, and then go back to bed because, damn it, I wasn't going to stay up the entire time to go ahead and watch it because I was too damn tired from playing football the night before. So, I don't understand. When Disney gets Marvel, they start the cinematic universe and start developing stuff for television. When they get Star Wars, they start developing new movies. When they get Power Rangers, they kill it. They try to kill it. And then, I mean, they almost intentionally tried to kill RPM because, again, RPM, they got a guy who had done animation, had not done live action stuff, gave it a crappy time slot, didn't advertise for it at all, and cut the budget significantly. So they essentially set up to fail. And then they get to Samurai and basically say, nope, we're not going to do this anymore. It's too Japanese or it costs too much money or whatever the hell their excuse was. And they decided, it'd be easier. Let's take stuff that's already been filmed and let's just edit some stupid comic book sparkles and 1960s Batman effects and say it's a new season of Power Rangers. Really? That's what you're going to go ahead and do with this franchise? The reason the title of this video is called Disney Sucks is because they had a gold mine in Power Rangers but didn't know what to do with it. Now here's the thing. Disney sold the rights back to Saban. Saban is doing some positive things with the franchise now. But as I hope I made clear in my what I would do if I ran Power Rangers kind of thing, is that with Disney's money, do you guys know how big Power Rangers could be nowadays? Because again, like what I said, Marvel Comics, up to the time before that first Iron Man movie, was still kind of thought for prepubescent teens and young adults. There is still that stigma that you get with those types of comics. What those characters from the Big Bang Theory are supposed to go ahead and represent. But now that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has become mainstream, everybody and their mother, and my mother, love it. They think it's the greatest thing, and we're having conversations on Twitter on whether or not Luke Cage is racist or not. They got Luke Cage, Power Man, into the common vernacular, into the culture out there. Who the hell would have thought 10 years ago we'd be talking about Luke Cage as a controversy on Twitter? Really? I mean, just really, that's no disrespect to Luke Cage, but the fact that Marvel took this character, or Disney took this character with the help of Marvel and everything, and put it into this Netflix special that was so watched that it crashed the server. I mean, it's just amazing. And again, look at Star Wars. What was before Disney bought them? It was like, oh, geez, the first three movies are great, but then the prequels ruined my childhood. Oh no, Star Wars sucks forever. And now it's kind of like everybody loves Star Wars now because they got a new movie, they got tons of new merchandise out there. They're advertising it all over the place. Again, I would say it revitalized the Star Wars franchise. But again, you don't do that with Power Rangers. Power Rangers, for whatever the reason, is still thought to be a show that's only watched by 6-year-old kids, and people like me, people like you on Ranger Board or Ranger Crew or any of these other websites are thought to be the outliers, to be the people that this show is not meant for. If you like it, good, but we're not making the show for you. That seems to be the mentality of Disney at the time, and maybe even a couple of other producers along the way. Why didn't they take Power Rangers and buy it up and suddenly say, we're going to make a new Power Ranger movie? We're going to reboot it. We're going to get some new characters, or we're going to continue the story. We're going to have a new television series. We're going to add, a bigger budget. We're going to put it on prime time. We're going to have something that maybe the older fans would like. Let's go ahead and make a movie with Power Rangers, and let's have Robert Downey Jr. as Lord Zed. I mean, you did this for Iron Man, and again, nobody gave a crap about Iron Man before you had Robert Downey Jr. cast, and now everybody loves Iron Man. And again, the whole Star Wars thing. Again, I just don't understand why those two franchises got preferential treatment over Power Rangers. Now, you can say, hey, Power Rangers wasn't that big of a brand name, but I will remind you the franchise had just turned 10 years old at the time they acquired the property, and it was still relatively popular. Again, the most popular season they had was, the 6th season, which actually helped continue the show, keep it going. But I would like to bring up the point, again, how many of you actually knew who the Purple Man was before watching Jessica Jones? How many of you actually knew who Jessica Jones was before she had her own TV show? Honestly, how many of you out there? And I'm sure there are some comic book guys out there who read them, but I had never heard of this woman, and I know of tons of superheroes. I never heard of her. I never heard of Luke Cage. I might have heard of Iron Fist at some point, and I was only aware of who Daredevil was because of the 90s Spider-Man TV series. Those characters, the Defenders that they're being called, or that they are called, and we are getting to show off, nobody knew who those people were. Nobody knew who the Mandarin was before Iron Man 3. Nobody knew that Loki was such an interesting character. Hell, they invented him as an interesting character. And the Red Skull, I only saw him once as a kid, again, on that same Spider-Man series. But now they're all mainstream. But are you trying to go ahead and tell me that the Purple Man is more mainstream than Rita Repulsa? That in the cultural consciousness of around 2002, 2003, that more people knew who the Purple Man was than Rita Repulsa? That there were more fans of Iron Man than there were of the Power Rangers? I mean, you can't tell me that they didn't have some name recognition, because they were only, again, a decade displaced from the Golden Age, if you were. But again, you have these characters who were created in, the Silver Age of comics that are now, incredibly popular now, but nobody who knew they were. I mean, I'm sure somebody had to go up to Disney and give a 20-minute presentation on who Luke Cage is and why he would be an interesting character for a TV series. You don't have to do that with Power Rangers. Just say, it's Power Rangers. There you go. Why did Disney have to be convinced not to cancel the show? Why did they have to be convinced to keep it going? Because it seems like, from what we're seeing now, is that every year was a struggle to even keep Power Rangers on the air. No matter how many people were watching it or how many people were buying the damn toys, it was always a struggle to keep that show going and for Disney to say, yeah, let's do another damn season. And why is that? Why is that? Why was that such a big deal? Why is it that you can easily get these other franchises off the ground from comic books and, again, re-interject Star Wars? And again, can you imagine if Disney had actually cared about the franchise? And again, they're saying like, hey, the executive I talked to said it was only meant to sell toys. Okay, well, that's your opinion. And that it was that opinion that I think that ruined it here, because they have this negative connotation about Power Rangers. But I'm going to go back to the toy thing real quick. Of course, we know that the original Star Wars came out, and it was, nobody believed in the project so much that Lucas bought the merchandising rights, and then, of course, they made the toys, and then with every succeeding movie, they made more and more, to now it is kind of ridiculous with the toys, even before Disney bought it. So, of course, the toy thing grew out of the popularity of the program. I would say the same thing about the Marvel stuff, because everybody's looking for a Black Widow action figure, but before, there was actually... No, again, who cared about Black Widow before the movie came out? I didn't even know she was supposed to be a superhero when she showed up in Iron Man 2. I was like, who the hell is this? Because I didn't know who Scarlett Johansson was. I'll be honest about that. I was like, I have no idea who you are, lady. Why are you getting twice as much dialogue as some of the other characters here? I keep getting off my point, guys. I'm going all over the place because I am really fuming about this here, because they didn't believe in the franchise. They thought it was just meant to go ahead and sell toys. Yet, what are they doing with their franchise? They're selling toys. They're selling toys for Star Wars. They're selling toys for Marvel. They're doing all this stuff that they never bothered with Power Rangers, because they thought it was just meant to sell toys, when that's what you were going to do anyway. And again, I believe I heard this somewhere, that even if RPM had been the last season of Power Rangers, they were still going to make toys based on the Mighty Morphin line. And part of that went into what they were doing with the revision. And supposedly they were still going to do Shinkanger toys, even if Samurai wasn't actually a thing. So it seems basically that one of the reasons that this particular executive didn't like it is because, well, we don't want it because it's just there to make money for us. That's pretty much what he said. And you know me, guys, I don't believe Power Rangers is meant to sell toys. I do believe it's meant to tell stories. That's what things like TV shows and movies do. They're meant to, tell stories, not to hawk your wares. I mean, that's why you have Bandai and Saban. They're two completely different companies. They're not owned by one another. They're two separate entities, okay? It's just like Disney and Bandai. It's not like Disney bought up Bandai, when they did this deal. No. Sure, did Disney probably get the rights to sell their toys in Disney Store? Yeah, but when they did sell the toys, they only sold like one or two. Because I remember going to Disney Store during Operation Overdrive, and all I ever found were Red Ranger figures. Didn't find a damn thing. All I found was one Red Ranger figure. But of course, you go now, and they have like 50,000 things dedicated to Frozen. But whatever, that's another topic. The reason I'm venting here is because they had a gold mine of a franchise for potential, but they didn't do anything about it. Let me give you an example here. Star Wars, you want a fantasy space adventure and all that kind of stuff? You have Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Develop Lost Galaxy into something like that. You want a show where there's like goofy people in space with a talking raccoon or animal sidekick? Power Rangers in space. I guarantee you they could have invented a talking animal sidekick and gave them to the Space Rangers and had the same kind of stories and adventures. You want to tell a World War II story with a superhuman? Heck, why not go tell a Power Ranger prequel about Power Rangers fighting in World War II? You could actually have time-traveling Power Rangers if you wanted, or you can say U.S. government experimented with Ranger powers in the 1940s and covered the whole thing up, and that's why nobody heard of Power Rangers until the 1990s. You could totally do that story. You want to talk about a man who is, part machine, whatever, because, he tries to sell weapons and gets a shrapnel in his heart, and they had put a device in there, and that's what's keeping him alive. I can name a dozen Ranger characters you could have done that with, or you could have taken a character like Mac, who, after becoming human, human, lost his way, became arrogant, used his father's money to make weapons, whatever, and now he has an artificial heart, and there's the irony there that he was once a machine, wanted to be human, and now he's a machine once again because of the poor choices he makes in life. That is a movie, folks. I just pitched it to you right there. Why wasn't that something they developed instead of what they actually did with the show, which was, again, as much as I like it, was a little half-hearted. I mean, that's really what half of Disney Power Rangers was really half-hearted. They're coming out with Doctor Strange, I think, what is it, next month or something? About, wizard and, magical powers and, evil thing wants to take over the world with magic. Hello, Mystic Force! You could have told an exact same story or a similar kind of story. You want to talk about street crime in the city and all that? You want to talk about urban environments and Harlem? It's not that hard to take one of the Black Rangers, African American Rangers, and put them in a situation where it's an all-black neighborhood and, they're a Power Ranger and they're trying to stop, some drug-dealing gangsters, whatever, with guns and stuff, and they use their Ranger powers. So instead of having Luke Cage, you could have had Zach Taylor. Hey, Zach coming back, after the peace conference, goes to his home back in Harlem, because that's where he's actually born. Maybe he's not from Angel Grove, but he still has, or he gets his morpher back from Adam or something. Like, Adam's like, I don't need this anymore. Here you have it. And he's like, now I can actually do some good because I'm not bound by Zordon's rules for personal gain. You could tell that story. You want to talk about, blind lawyers and stuff like that. There's no reason you can't have one of the Rangers grow up to be a lawyer and then defend the streets at night. You could have done that with that particular character. Look at the fantasy elements that we had in Thor. Again, Thor shows up in Power Rangers. So you could do an entire, story about that version of Thor. You could have, but you didn't. Let's see here. Look at the Hulk turning into a monster. You could have done that with a couple of the other Rangers. I do believe that RJ one time turned into a werewolf. So why not have a story about a posh Swaymaster that is turning into an animal because his animal spirit is messing with him, is trying to get out? I believe that's exactly what happened to RJ in Jungle Fury. So why didn't you do a story about that? You got spies and intrigue and all that stuff that happened in the Winter Soldier and all that. Again, maybe go ahead and take Operation Overdrive. Maybe there's a malevolent force inside. Not Operation Overdrive, Lightspeed Rescue. I'm sorry. Take Lightspeed Rescue. There is a Hydra-like equivalent in Lightspeed Rescue. Now that the demons are gone, they're going to take over and use it to, supplant, Lightspeed and enforce their will upon the city. The thing is, the elements that they establish for both the Star Wars and Marvel franchises are right there in Power Rangers. Someone once told me the reason that Marvel is so popular and stuff is because they have literally thousands of characters and thousands of interesting stories to tell. Okay, I agree with you there, that is true. But I believe the same is true for Power Rangers as well. Maybe not thousands, maybe 8,000 characters, I'm not sure, I haven't actually counted. But you're telling me you can't tell interesting stories with our Rangers from where you put them, or hey, create new Rangers that are actually interesting. Because that's something I always found with the Disney era Rangers, is that they made some interesting choices, but never made interesting Rangers. For as many people who love, the Kira character, who I never did like Kira. She was not an interesting character to me whatsoever. All you really did was make her an emo that was interested in singing and was kind of flirting with the White Ranger. That's really all you did with the character. Maybe you could do something else and expand that character. No, you only went this far and no further and didn't want to do anything interesting with her at all. And what was the future career path you gave her? Oh, she becomes a singer, she becomes a pop star and all that. Yay! Yeah, I mean, great going there, folks. You made a boring character even duller, because that's what people like. Again, you have the potential with Power Rangers for all the types of stories you told with Marvel. You decided to tell them with Marvel, but you didn't decide to use Power Rangers at all? I mean, again, they purchased Power Rangers before they started making the Marvel Cinematic movies. This was 2002, 2003, and Iron Man came out, 2006, 2007-ish, maybe 2008? But again, here you are with Power Rangers in your pocket, and you're like, what are we going to do with it? I know, let's cancel the show. And then reluctantly, every year you have to do it. And now there's like a whole Star Wars exhibit at Disney World. What was the most the Power Rangers did? Oh yeah, they put them in one of the daytime parades that they had over at Epcot because that's what you do with heroes. And I can't get over this, folks. I really can't because now we have the greatness of Star Wars come out every year, and I love Star Wars. I think it's great. I have no problem with the franchise whatsoever. And you have Marvel with new series after new series with 2 movies every year and all that, and I have no problem with that. I love that just as much. But my franchise, the one that I love, is the one you want to kick to the curb so much that you buy it, don't do anything with it, want to try and cancel the series, have to be talked into it to make it, and there we are. Oh, and by the way, again, whether this is true or not is up for debate, but if it's true, it's a hilarious story, and again, I've told this one before, but supposedly the reason we're just now getting DVDs of Super Sentai is because other people were trying to buy the rights for distribution of Sentai in America, but Disney bought up the rights for the distribution of Super Sentai in Region 1 so that they would not make those DVDs. Because apparently the logic was, well, if somebody makes this Zero Ranger DVD, they're going to think it's Power Rangers, and when they see the things like blood and guns and adult themes, they're going to think it's Power Rangers. Republican mothers are going to get pissed, and they're going to write into us, and we'll be the ones getting blamed as opposed to the company selling it, because those idiots don't know the difference between Japan and America. Now, again, that's speculation, whether that's true or not, but that's what I'd always heard. I'm glad Sentai's on DVD now, but could you imagine if there was any truth to that Disney did not want to distribute Super Sentai just because they would be afraid of parental outrage at the products because the parents can't tell the difference between Super Sentai and Power Rangers? That even shows they have no confidence in their audience whatsoever. So I know it's a rant, it's a big old rant, but hey, that's what I do here, and that's the price of admission is to listen to me rant here. But I just don't get I really don't, and nobody's been able to come up with a convincing argument. And again, it keeps coming back to the same point. It's meant for 6-year-olds. Okay, in 1938, Superman was meant for 6-year-olds, selling for what, a dime for kids to go ahead and read? He was for kids, and look at him now. He's a cultural icon. Everybody loves him. Batman, I believe that was, what, 1939? Don't quote me on that. Maybe a year later. Meant for kids. Nolanverse in Dark Knight Rises is considered one of the greatest superhero films of all time, if not one of the greatest films of all time. I wouldn't be surprised if Dark Knight ends up on the AFI Top 100 movies in the next couple of years. Iron Man, hey, with all respect to Stan Lee and all those guys that were trying to make an interesting character out of him, I think he would still agree with you that we did have a younger audience in mind, kids and teenagers. But now look at him, got Robert Downey Jr., who's pushing 50, or I think he may be in his 50s now. And again, everybody loves him. And you got Chris Evans that you redeemed off of a hero that came out in, 1938 as well, I believe. First appearance punching Hitler, that was for kids. It was jingoistic, try to get them, excited about America and stuff. And now look where he is. Yes, Marvel and DC Comics and all those others have had all these decades to evolve and change. And Power Rangers is relatively young compared to those franchises. I get it. Batman, Superman, they're 75 years old and everything. Power Rangers, hasn't even made it to 25 yet. So I get there's got to be a little time for gestation and whatnot and stuff. But you're basically saying, this is a kid's property only meant to sell stuff, and we like this more than this kid's property that we believe was meant to only sell stuff. I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, because I can imagine somebody going into a meeting is like, okay, we have 2 ideas for movies. Okay, what do you got? Well, we have this one movie that's based off this comic character from the 1960s that nobody's really heard of since their animated series in the early 90s. And we have this other about a superhero team that was created in the 90s, was a worldwide phenomenon, has already had 2 feature films, and we buy it from cheap from this one company. Which one should we make a movie out of? Let's get that character that nobody gives a damn about and that little superhero team, let's just shoot them off to New Zealand and let them do whatever the hell they want to go ahead and do. But let's slash their budget every year and make sure that they know their place. Maybe that's what it is that we're supposed to know our place. We're supposed to accept the fact that our franchise sucks in comparison to every other, and that we should never strive for anything greater. Maybe that's what they're trying to go ahead and tell us. They're trying to put us in our place, folks. Disney's saying, your franchise sucks, so screw you, I'm going home. I mean, it's really hard to be a Power Ranger fan and know what they've done with other franchises. To look at your Marvel friends and say, "Hey, Disney bought your franchise and look what they did with it," or to have a Star Wars fan as a friend say, "You know, the prequels suck, but man, ever since Disney bought it, they've been going like crazy and making some great stuff." And then here you are as a Power Ranger fan saying, "Disney bought my franchise, and they did nothing interesting with it." Disney didn't come out with a feature film at all. They cut the number of episodes. They slashed the budget. They moved production. They alienated, past characters. I mean, heck, the stuff with Jason David Frank, if half that stuff is kind of true, it's just kind of like, they brought him down, didn't want to pay him enough money, and then we come out of some episodes and whatnot, and I don't know. It's just, however much of Jason David Frank stuff is true, I'm not exactly sure, but it just seems to me that, oh yeah, and again, you bring Johnny Young Bosch back for the 15th anniversary, but you bring back the surfer chick, the emo chick, the charismatic New Zealander, and the buttery dude. Seriously? I'm all for Xander, but the other three? Oh, because they already live in New Zealand, we can get them from cheap as opposed to actually, bringing famous characters in from the United States. But we'll throw them a bone. We'll throw one in there, just so they'll get off our backs about it. Oh, and we'll bring Alpha in, but we won't have his original voice actor, just because we have the costume, but we don't need the actor. It's really hard to look at the entirety of the Disney era, from Ninja Storm all the way up to RPM and the revision from Power Rangers. It's really hard to look at that and honestly say with a straight face that they gave their all, they gave their best effort. Now, did they do good things in Disney era? Of course. Every Power Ranger season, no matter how bad, does have its bright spots, does have some good concepts, some good ideas, good stories, good episodes, good all around. There are some things that they do with those stories that are actually good. But again, to say that they gave their all, that they gave Power Rangers the same type of attention they did Marvel and Star Wars, that's just asinine to believe that. I mean, I can't help but sit here and think of if they actually gave a damn about the franchise, actually put money into it and cared about it, do you guys know where Power Rangers would be nowadays? We wouldn't be having these articles on Cinema Blend and other websites saying, "Do you remember how awesome Power Rangers was back in the day?" Or, "Yeah, it sure was great, but now it still sucks. Ha ha! Let's laugh at that television show. They're only meant to sell toys. There's nothing deep or interesting about Power Rangers. Ha ha ha!" I mean, that's what people are saying nowadays, but now it's like, look at all the Easter eggs you missed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or here's the deeper meaning of Captain America. And they do a whole article about how Captain America is probably a virgin. And then, heck, did you guys see Plinkett's review of The Force Awakens and how all these new articles were coming out about Star Wars and stuff? True, they were defending the prequels, which I'm on record as saying I didn't think were as bad as people said, but that I've been saying that before we got The Force Awakens. Uh, I mean, just like there's so much oversaturation of both those franchises, and Power Rangers always that back page article. It's that footnote in history. I don't know why it is that we have this stigma on the franchise. Where did this come from? Why do people think that? How do Marvel characters start to be these obscure niche comic book things like, again, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, whatever, but then blow up into these multi-billion-dollar franchises, while Power Rangers, which had a great deal of popularity, is known around the world, literally, whether it's Power Rangers or Super Sentai, and yet just can't catch a break? Why is it we're relegated to the D list, the E list, the F list, whatever? How is it Power Rangers are not on the A list? Because I think no matter how good that Power Ranger movie is that's coming out, or how good Ninja Steel is going to be, people are not going to give it any attention. Nobody's going to care about it. As soon as Iron Fist hits Netflix, I guarantee there's going to be another crash from people trying to watch it. But as soon as that Power Ranger movie comes out, and I will be at the premiere, I guarantee you, I will find a movie theater that's playing it no matter how far I have to go, and I'll go there for a midnight event, and I'll guarantee you that I'm the first one in line. Probably because there will only be 7 people there. Because as much as I admit to hate it, we are second fiddle. We are the 4th string QB for the New England Patriots. We don't matter. That's pretty much what it is in people's eyes. And it hurts me to think that Saban sold the rights to Disney and Disney did nothing with it. And now Saban's trying to make Power Rangers relevant. They're not doing that good of a job, honestly, but they're at least trying. And here it is with Disney, and they had all the money in the world, all the opportunity, all the talent, all the star power. They had everything at their beck and call, and they decided to do nothing with it at all. And that's what's the most frustrating thing at all. And that's why I say Disney sucks. I don't know what else there is to say, folks. Again, I think I've made my point quite clear. No matter how much I've gone into this, they could have done anything they wanted with Power Rangers, but they didn't. They squandered it, they wasted it, and that makes them the real villains in all this. Did they give us great stuff in Disney era? Okay, I'll buy that. They add to the Power Rangers mythology, came up with some interesting ideas and whatnot, and they kept the show going. But that's as much as I'm going to give them, because I know they could have done more. Because when you have potential and you squander the potential, that makes you the bad guy. That makes you the lazy person. Because where's that, how many of you know that guy sitting on the chair, drinking a beer, watching a football game, going, if I could have played college ball, or I could have been into the NFL, I could have done all that. I had all this potential. But then you turn to them and it's like, well, then why'd you do anything about it? And then they give you some excuse. Oh, I got hurt. Oh, my girlfriend. Or, oh, I didn't like the coach. And that's what Disney is doing, is they're giving excuses. And that's how I feel about that guy I talked to. It's just an excuse. There was no reason you couldn't take that franchise, turn something great. If you thought it was just there to sell toys, then why didn't you sell toys? You sold a bunch of Marvel. You're selling more than anybody ever needs for Star Wars. But for Power Rangers, it was different. Why? Because you think it's for kids? Star Wars is for kids, isn't it? Iron Man's for kids. Hulk is for kids. Thor's for kids. And yet Power Rangers was for kids? And that's your excuse? Really? Okay, I've said my piece. I think. Who knows? Maybe I'll talk more about this later, but I think I've taken enough of your all's time. So what do you guys think? What are your opinions on Disney buying the franchise and what they did with it, what they didn't do with it? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. And, yeah, that's it for today. So I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.